In today's video, I want to speak about how this whole research on quote-unquote consciousness, because I say quote unquote because we don't really know what consciousness is, and it seems to be something much more deeper than we think. A lot of people still think that consciousness are just thought patterns or thought processes, cognitive processes, but it goes deeper than that. Consciousness seems to be a network of intelligence that, as we will see, and as I've been saying all along in this channel, going with the quantum physics theories, it seems that it's what everything is made of. So in today's video, I want to speak how this research is no longer a thing of fringe theories. It's no longer the realm of the occult or the imaginary or the fantastic or anything of that sort. Some of the recent articles that have been coming out into mainstream culture, into mainstream media, deal with all of these things, which 5 years ago would have been deemed strange or crazy or weird. Today in 2021 we're seeing official reports from government agencies or large scale news chains, all the way to university departments, which have special sections of their structure just studying things like the paranormal or the use of entheogens, things of that nature. I remember when I started this channel 1 year ago, I would point people towards these places, towards this research, and a lot of places I would be called crazy, would be called, oh, it's all imagination, it's all nonsense, and so on and so forth. But in 1 year, things have changed dramatically. Just this year, on the end of 2020, we've seen things all the way from UFO disclosure to official government-backed research on entheogens and things of that nature, which are starting to pose the question: what are we gonna find at the end of the tunnel? What are we finding right now? Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. Alright, so I have here on my screen some of these articles that I want to speak about, quite a few of them. So I'm going to start with this one, which says a strange link between the human mind and quantum physics. Nobody understands what consciousness is or how it works. Nobody understands quantum mechanics either. Could that be more than coincidence? Now, I'm not gonna go into the whole article. I'm just gonna point out some of the interesting notes, but I'm gonna be looking at the dates of these articles. This came out in 2017. It's a bit old, but it started the question that I've been asking, that I mentioned at the introduction of this video. Nobody really knows what consciousness is. A lot of people, a lot of psychologists, a lot of people in the science community, they think they know exactly what consciousness is in the traditional sense. All these cognitive processes or thought processes. I think that, psychologists, there are some psychologists who think they know what consciousness is and where memories are stored in the brain and so on. We don't know. We just don't know. So this one goes a lot into the real problem in quantum physics, which I mentioned in a lot of videos on this channel, which is the main thing where the double slit experiment right here, the most famous intrusion of the mind into quantum mechanics comes in the double slit experiment. If somebody is watching this video does not know what the double slit experiment is, I would highly suggest that you would go on, Google it, and watch a lot of videos about it and try to fully understand, because a lot of people look at it and try to understand it, but they don't really get it. And this is one of the issues that I've been speaking about. The scientific community is saying, oh, they're trying to, pages and pages and pages long about what this double slit experiment might mean. But as we are seeing, this is from the BBC. This is BBC.com, Earth Story, 2017. Our mainstream media is starting to get the picture of what we're really looking at. So we got the implication seems to be that each particle passes simultaneously through both slits. The article then goes to explain the whole thing about the wave particle dynamic of light and so on and so forth. But the main idea is that both things are occurring at the same time, but what happens in your objective reality, the reality that we see day to day, is whatever the observer focuses on. So the implication is that the particle passes simultaneously through both slits, but then whatever you look at, if you look at the particle, if you measure it, it's a measurement problem, it's gonna go only through one. Let's see, what else does this go? They talk about the Schrodinger's cat, which is the same. Both things are real at the same time. The sheer act of noticing rather than any physical disturbance caused by measuring can cause the collapse. This is the collapse of the wave function. So on the side note before, it says that the particles go through both slits. That's the wave phenomena. But when you put attention to it, you will see the particle, which in your reality is an individual unit, is only gonna go through one. So this is collapsing the true nature, which is the wave, into your perception, which is the individual particle going through one of the slits. It is hard to avoid the implication that consciousness and quantum mechanics are somehow linked. So this is the whole thing that I'm saying. Scientists keep denying it and keep trying to hear all these explanations about the phenomena. But what the actual phenomena is suggesting is this, that nothing is really objective and our perception is just that, a perception of things. Roger Penrose with Hameroff, they have a very interesting theory on consciousness, which it has to do with that wave collapse. I think I've spoken about it. Otherwise, I'm gonna make a video about it because that one is one of my most favorite theories. It's quite complicated, but it is the most complete in my opinion. Perhaps quantum mechanics is involved with consciousness. What else do they have? Microtubules. This is the one for these microtubules inside the brain. This is the one from Roger Penrose and Hameroff. Okay, other researchers have found evidence of quantum effects in living beings and so on and so forth. As I said, I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but it basically tries to point out to this connection between the mind, consciousness, which we don't know what it is, and quantum physics, right? And a lot of people, when you start tying quantum physics to ancient philosophies or to spirituality, what is called quote-unquote spirituality, the New Age, all they say that it's nonsense, it's fake, it's imagination, and some scientists are super angry that it is conjoined with all these ideas. This is what the evidence is showing. The fact that you do not want to believe it is part of the whole issue of cognitive dissonance, where you're looking at the evidence and you don't want to believe it because there's a lot of issues involved. I believe a lot of people are afraid of what the real implications could be if this is true, which I will speak about at the end of this video. It goes on, every line of thought of the relationship of consciousness to physics runs into deep trouble. This is what I'm talking about. We have to get past this because this could literally change the world. Quantum consciousness is widely derided as mystical woo, but it just will not go away. The whole thing about quantum consciousness, this is what the research is leading into, that there's a network, there's a unified field of consciousness which affects the quantum reality. As I said, this is BBC Earth, this was 2017. I'm gonna go to the next article. Alright, so this next article comes from the Daily Mail, and it's about how TikTok users discovered the classified 1983 CIA report investigating if people can leave their physical bodies to travel through space and time using gateway experiences, low frequency sounds, and relaxation techniques. Now that is one hell of a title for an article from the Daily Mail involving TikTok. TikTok is a social media application where people can share a little small videos about challenges. It's used by more often than not young people who are doing practical jokes and whatsoever. So it's kind of interesting that these ideas of the gateway experience and the CIA report came into TikTok. So this article is from 2021, I believe. I have the date right. July 27, 2021, just a few months from when I'm doing these videos. So basically, it goes on to say that TikTok users have uncovered a bewildering CIA report from nearly 4 decades ago that describes the agency belief that humans can transcend space and time. It's a technique called the gateway experience. I'm going to go a little bit into this gateway experience further along. So the report, entitled Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process, was penned in 1983 by U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Wayne M. McDonnell. So this was an official report about this in 1983. The whole article tried to explain all of this report from McDonnell, and then goes on to explain how the goal was to create an altered state of consciousness. This was done through a way to manipulate brainwaves. This is very important because this is something that keeps coming up in the research, especially dealing with the research on entheogens, where people who go under psilocybin or DMT, they experience this shift in the brainwaves, which go into theta brainwaves, which is where people start getting these altered state of consciousness experiences. So it has to do with the brainwaves, and I'll explain a little bit further along why is that important. Practical uses of the technique, according to the CIA report, include manifesting goals, converting energy to heal one's body, and even traveling across space and time to access new information. The article goes on to say that it was found by TikTok users and how, it was interesting for the CIA to, transcend space and time for many purposes, I believe. I'm not going to go into that. But in any case, it goes on to how it became popular in TikTok. So we have some of the social media influencers trying to explain. This document literally explains where we go when we die, what consciousness is, our universe is a hologram, time travel, etc. So all of this comes in the social media applications, as I said. It's quite interesting because this is something that is of interest for everyone. This has been around, and this is something that scientists are denying. But now it comes to our social media. No, this is something that is getting into the mainstream. And it needs to be out there. So this whole thing was done when during the Cold War, when they were trying to go into extrasensory perception in order to achieve what is known as remote viewing, and try to. I had a video about that. I made a video about that on how remote viewing and all these paranormal phenomena has been studied before, and a lot of people still deny this, and they say no, this is just imagination and whatnot. There are actual reports of this research that was done by government agencies to spy on each other during the Cold War and so on and so forth. But it all came a little bit more public when Robert Monroe, which is mentioned in this article, in 1975, Monroe's company, Monroe Industries, registered patents for audio technique called hemisync, short for hemispheric synchronization. It goes on to explain a little bit about Robert Monroe. Robert Monroe was someone who was into the audio industry. He started to have these sleep paralysis episodes, and he became very interested into what was happening to him. He wanted to seek help, to seek doctors to explain to him what was going on. They said, there's nothing wrong with you. He explained how his episodes of sleep paralysis would come about, and how he would feel like he was dying, and all of this goes forward with more of the research on OBEs and as I've been saying, it all ties with ancient scriptures. So when you listen to Robert Monroe explaining how he felt this extreme vibration in the vibration episodes, the vibration state before full-on out-of-body experience, you can sort of relate it to some of the ancient scriptures. For example, when Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, would meet the Archangel Gabriel, and he would explain these strange vibrations, or in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, when they explain when a person dies, it feels like the whole world is collapsing around them, and there are thundering skies, and the waves of the ocean crash against you. So it's this moment of the destruction of the real world into vibration. So it's sort of, everything starts coming together, as I've been saying. It says, MacDonald opened his report with a brief letter laying out how he used objective scientific methods to understand and explore the gateway experience with a goal of determining practical uses for the CIA. Of course, all of this is supposed to have a scientific background, and the idea of it was to achieve practical purposes. But this is what I'm saying again. It goes on with what I was saying on the previous article. They're trying to be very objective about it. They're trying to be very scientific about it, but this could change the way we perceive the world as human beings. Like, this leaves government experiments and CIA just at a minuscule relevance to what the whole thing could mean for being human itself. The multi-pronged analysis included the following components: biomedical models to understand the physical aspects of the gateway process, quantum mechanics to explain the nature of functioning of human consciousness, theoretical physics to explain the character of the time-space dimension, and the means by which it could be transcended by expanding consciousness with the gateway process, classical physics to translate the out-of-body experience into the language of physical science. Interesting. And then he made some sketches to try to explain all of this, and it goes into the whole idea that there are two worlds. There's the world of real objective worlds, and then there's a hologram, and the whole thing at the end of the day is a hologram, but what we experience as reality is part of a larger, more complex hologram, as it is noted somewhere around here. They go on to explain how the brain needs to attune itself with the other side, with the other part of the brain, and how they achieve this through sound. So it's just quite complicated. It's interesting, but at the end of the day, it goes into this: when a bit frequency is reached with hemisync, the left hemisphere is relaxed, but it goes into a virtual sleep state, and the brain patterns in both hemispheres align, creating the potential for the subject to alter their own consciousness, according to MacDonald. So this virtual sleep state is something interesting, because this is what I'm saying. As I said, Robert Monroe started this research and this project because he started to have sleep paralysis, which led into OBEs, where he goes deeply into his books, and then the books, they are no longer about just hemisync. They explain much deeper realities about consciousness, about the final reality of who we are. But in any case, this virtual sleep state, as I was saying, has to do with also meditation. When you think about Buddhist monks, when you think about just these deep trance, these deep states of consciousness, where people go into this quote-unquote virtual sleep state, and that's where people can go to the outer realms. So I'm gonna be speaking about, I have all of these articles. I'm not gonna cover them all today. I just realized that I'm not gonna be able to. So I might be doing a series on this, but there's one here going into DMT, where it's basically about this. What the DMT experience does, it turns your brain from the beta waves, where we are currently on our conscious life, into the theta waves, where we start going into different places. So it is when we achieve these brain waves where we can go into this transcendence of space and time, as it is implied in this CIA report from 1983. This is a real life report. This is not imagination. This is no new age. This is a real report from real research that has been done in the last 40 years or more. It goes on to explain a little bit about the holograms formed by the human mind are attuned to the universal hologram. McDonald says, with the right hemisphere receiving energy from the universal hologram and the left hemisphere translating it into what we know as consciousness. There we go. So this is what I was saying. We don't really know what consciousness is. So what it seems to be is that the brain sort of translates something, is some sort of a receiver which translates and creates our experience. But beyond our brain, there is a much more complex world, which is best explained by the word hologram. So when I start speaking, and I do a lot of this in this channel, where I start speaking about this world of spirit, that as I've been, the first book that I wrote regarding the outline is the Christian philosophies, the Christian mythology, where this figure of Jesus talked about this quote-unquote world of spirit, or the heavens, or the kingdom, this place where the quote-unquote Father lives. And it can give you anything you want, anything you say in quote-unquote prayer, anything you think about with your conscious mind will be added on to you. So it's about bringing things from this hologram into the real world. And this has to do, as I said, I think it was in the previous video where I spoke about why Jesus gets angry. It has to do with Plato's theory of forms. There's a place where forms are perfect, and everything we see in our real world comes from that place. And now we have a real report which is trying to explain all of this in more scientific terms, which is, as I say, leaking into TikTok, into the Daily Mail in 2021. We are on the edge of a huge discovery for humanity. The article goes on to try to explain how this is achieved, and more how the brain connects to the hologram, represents consciousness, give affirmation along the lines, I am merely a physical body and deeply desire to expand my consciousness. They talk about these affirmations, which are sort of like mantras. When the Buddhist monks go into rocking back and forward and saying a mantra, it's a definite idea. It's something that they want to achieve. So they sort of use these rituals. This is what I would call a ritual, but it's called an affirmation. It is a conscious thought. It is a tool to achieve this process of letting go of the body into something else. So what we used to think as ritual, right now we see as guidelines in a structured process, which is detailed in a CIA report. So I find all of this extremely interesting, and the fact that people are not putting so much attention into this and they're still going about their day trying, it's just baffling to me, because truly going into these, all of the money should be put into Monroe's project, into Hemisync, into trying to understand. But at the same time, this is very, very complicated, and it could bring a lot of if we knew exactly who we are, everything, our whole worlds could change, and maybe this is something that shouldn't happen. I also want to go into some of the technicalities of it. And these are places. These are different realms. As nonetheless, Monroe is to transform that with enough practice, eventually Focus 15 can be achieved. So Focus 15 and Focus 21 right over here. These are different states that this was coined by Robert Monroe because he wanted the whole thing to be scientific. So in ancient scriptures, some of these areas are known as, the seventh heaven or the fourth heaven, or there were three heavens, and so on and so forth. And the Buddhists, they have different terminologies for this. So Monroe didn't want to call these anything extraordinary, so he called them Focus 15, Focus 21, different code names to try to explain what he was experiencing. So basically it says that they can go into the past and they can go into the future, because everything is coexisting at the same time, the past, the present, and the future. So this is quite interesting. It tells you that the whole hologram has everything together. and they can go and see their own lives in the past, or they can even go and see. It says they only state that not only the individual's past history is available for examination by the one who has achieved Focus 15, but other aspects of the past with which the individual himself has had no connection with may also be accessed. So you are not you when you are in this realm. You are everything. You are part of the whole consciousness. So, you know, things like, you know, our self-identity are removed, as it is very well known in the antigen research. It's called an ego dissolution. That's what people go through when they achieve this altered state of consciousness. Then the article finishes by saying that McDonald, he laid out recommendations for how the CIA should go about designing further gateway studies, though it's unclear if the agency ever launched any. Currently, one page of McDonald's report is missing, number 25, in the middle of a section where he was outlining potential practical uses of the gateway. So they tried to boycott with a change.org petition calling for the CIA to release it, but the CIA says that there's never a page to begin with. A theory that McDonald left it out on purpose as a challenge for someone to master the gateway experience and seek it out themselves. So this is what our narratives and our stories and our fantasies go into. Is going into the rabbit hole. Is the whole thing about is the alchemical purpose to understand the final reality and try to understand what's beyond our waking world, our waking reality, and try to understand the meaning of life and what is this all about. So it's kind of funny. It's interesting to me that the whole article is, and the report is, okay, how can we use this to, you know, further the agenda of the CIA, of the Agency of Intelligence of the United States, while in reality this whole thing could explain life itself. It goes beyond a nation, it goes beyond an agency. so perhaps in this page 25 is where he did this. I don't know if he actually did this as a challenge or if they removed it or so on and so forth, but that's part of the speculation that I wanted to speak about. So what are all of these articles telling us? So for this video, I wanted to review different articles, and I had some articles going into the UFO phenomena, near-death experiences, and how it's going into morning shows, the sort of the shows related to Oprah and things of that nature. I had the whole thing about the UFO disclosure programs and antigens, DMT. There's a lot of articles coming out, and this is just very recent. This is just this year or 5 years from now. Everything is very, very recent, but it's all tying together to the real research on altered states of consciousness, to the evidence that we're having, the evidence that we're stacking, the you know, some of the new ideas that are coming forward, the new theories on the of a unified field of consciousness. And also, all of this starts tying into, as I've been saying in this channel, what is the main thing that I've been doing, it is just tying into ancient philosophies and mythologies that we're talking about these things through their own perspective, through their own filter, with their own words, with their own deities, with their own stories and so on and so forth. But as I said, for example, on that Robert Monroe, when he speaks about his this vibration and how it is in some of the Middle Eastern scriptures related to their prophet, and how their prophet started to feel this incredible vibration and these scenes where then he met the angels and so on and so forth. It all starts tying up, and it gives us a larger picture of what might actually be happening and what might actually be the truth behind the bill of reality that we seem to perceive what might be behind it. It all ties to this idea that there's something behind the world that we see with our eyes. The world we see with our eyes is simply an interpretation of our brain, as explained there. That there's a complicated process going on in our brain where when everything works together, it renders the reality that we perceive. But when you shift that orchestration in the brain, something else happens, and you may have access to different realities going to the theta waves. And as I mentioned also, that Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff's theory goes into this. They call it, the name of the theory is OR, orchestrated objective reduction, which is that they tell you a very basic idea, a very basic way to understand it, is that there's this whole orchestration going inside the cells within the brain called microtubules, which create what we believe to be consciousness, what we believe to be our waking reality. It's an orchestration, as I said. But when that is not, what happens when you die, that the idea is that everything, all of this collapses, and then it leaks out this intelligence within the cells. It goes into the whole quantum theory, that everything is sort of together. It's not orchestrated anymore. This would explain why all these experiences can be kind of crazy, and people report all sorts of beings and things that happen and experiences which can go into very wild areas of the psyche. And this could be a bit of an explanation of that, but it ties into what I wanted to talk about next, which is, what does all of this means? As I've been saying, this has leaked into the mainstream media. We're talking about Daily Mail, we're talking about the BBC, TikTok, things of that nature, which starts relating to, as I said, they wanted to do the whole CIA project to advance the agenda of the CIA. No, how this is relevant is that the reports are speaking of things beyond this world. They are speaking about heavens, what they were called the levels of heaven, and the Buddhists called the bardos, and different heavens as well. And they speak about encounters with quote-unquote angels, as some other people interpret them as non-human intelligence, more advanced non-human intelligence. They'll speak about a source creator. They speak about traveling and meeting beings of different realities, of different planets even. This is where it starts tying into the UFO disclosure. So all of these that used to be in our narratives as elves, as dwarves, as fairies, and all of these things, religions and mythologies, start tying with these worlds of fantasy, which in reality could be different realities within the whole unified field of consciousness that we're speaking about. So when we think about it, the possibilities are endless, and as I've said, this can be very confusing at first for people who are living in a very structured world, in a very basic idea of religion, or a basic idea of reality, of go to work, pay your bills, then die. They wonder about things. All these things might come as a shock, but these things have been studied for a long time. We always had occult circles trying to understand all of this and trying to go deeper into the research. Now it's no longer occult, as I said at the beginning of the video. It's no longer something of imagination. It's not something for the sages. This is mainstream that is going into the everyday conversations as we start exploring these ideas of what happens after death. People are becoming more conscious about that question. People are starting to ask the biggest questions in life. Now that we seem to have a lot of social issues, people are starting to go deeper into trying to answer all these questions. So I think all of these ideas going into the mainstream is nothing but an amazing, perhaps, renaissance about to happen in the way that we understand waking reality. and what could lie beyond. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.